Welcome to Three Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we got to talk about Tony Khan triggering Vince Russo, and it was a light jab, but of course it was enough to stir up the hornet's nest that is Vince Russo. So, what took place? Well, Tony Khan had a conversation with somebody. I think he was on a podcast or a TV show or something like that, in which he was talking about the success of AEW. So he says some of the things that went wrong for WCW were giving creative control to a lot of the wrestlers, and some of the storylines were asinine. Some of the ideas were great, but it was a very disorganized show. And then they brought somebody else in from the WWF to be a writer, Vince Russo. He made it 10 times worse. He took a problem, they had a massive hangnail, and he chopped off the arm. That was part of the problem. Then you had another major issue, which was the management. Most successful wrestling companies have had one supreme commander at the top. He's owned it, booked everything, run the place, run management. Whether it's Vince McMahon, organizing everything, Cowboy Bill Watts, Eddie Graham, Fritz Von Erich, countless others. That made sense as a business model. Strong management. WCW didn't have, and I could provide. I am a more organized booker than anyone WCW had. That was his statement. He was talking about WCW, mostly. But he threw in just a slight jab at Vince Russo about how basically Vince Russo didn't help, right? Basically, Vince Russo didn't help. So Vince Russo goes on to absolutely have a meltdown and argue with AEW fans on Twitter. He made like several videos about it. We're not going to go through all of that stuff. Just going to say this. Vince Russo tweeted out, at Tony Khan, being you succeeded in losing half AEW's audience since the first show. If I cut off an arm, then you cut off AEW's manhood. TK, really? You want to go with me? Really? WCW drew 4 times what AEW is drawing on your Mickey Mouse watch. So that was his Twitter. I'm going to play a little bit of his. He posted, I guess he did a full video on Tony Khan. He posted a 3-minute thing on his Twitter, on his YouTube account. I'm going to play some of that. I just want to make sure people get as much of this information as we can before we move on.
Which means you try to ignore the facts. You think if you talk out your ass, that people are just going to take your word. You want to talk about me turning a hangnail into chopping off an arm? Let's talk about that, Tony. You've done nothing in the wrestling business but taken your father's money and started a plaything.
Well, that's an absolute fact. I mean, that is an absolute fact. We already know that Tony Khan is just like goofing off with daddy's money. I mean, he's not saying anything that anybody else wouldn't already say.
Numbers will show you, Tony, that the ratings went up 1 entire ratings point. In head-to-head competition with the WWE that was red hot at the time. Now, Tony, is that your definition of taking a hangnail and cutting off a limb? Because you look at yourself as a success. The first show on TNT drew 1.4 million people. When NXT was gone and you no longer had head-to-head competition, bro, you guys weren't even breaking 1 million.
Well, that is also true. That is also true. You know, I said this, and I got a lot of backlash from wrestling journalists because I said it. I mean, if you're a longtime listener to this channel, I said when AEW and NXT stopped going head to head, the ratings for both would go down. And what happened? The ratings for both went down because people were invested in the fight between AEW and NXT. They didn't really care about either show. Some people just wanted to stick it to AEW, and some people just wanted to stick it to Vince. So they were like, I gotta make sure I gotta watch Dynamite tonight. And then what happened when NXT was just, I can watch it on Tuesdays. Then people were just kind of like, I'll just watch it on the network, or I'll just watch it some other time. And AEW, same thing. It stopped being appointment viewing because it's not head to head anymore. So Vince Russo, I don't know about the whole WCW's ratings went up 1 full point when he got there. I don't know because it doesn't matter because everything crashed not too long after that anyway. But he's at least right about this piece. Now I haven't listened to this whole thing. I'm gonna see how much more of this I can play.
And you're gonna sit here and talk about my failure and your success when the facts and the numbers tell you a completely different story? It's a different time. There are different ways that people watch the show now. Well, you know what, Tony? So, Tony, listen, I'm warning you. You don't want to go there, Tony. You don't want to go there with me. You don't want to go there with my track record and your track record when it comes to writing a television show.
Okay. So I guess that was it. He didn't, I don't know if he addressed the whole idea of there's being different opportunities to watch. I mean, that is absolutely true. I mean, you can just go and look at just within the last couple of years, the overall amount of people who were watching television in 1997. If you give Russo the full run, if you give him from, I guess, what was it, from 95 to 2000 maybe, before he jumped ship to WCW. So that's about a 5-year run, okay? I've always said that Vince Russo was the Al Bundy of pro wrestling. The dude had a good 4 years, and now he sits on the couch with his hands stuffed down his pants talking about back in my day. It's like, who cares? You know, like I don't see him bragging too much about all the things he did in TNA. And he was actually close to the ground floor of TNA. And, you know, I'm pretty sure he did okay there. But you also have to realize when it comes to Vince Russo and some of the stuff that he was doing, like the Attitude Era in general, and we've gone over this on the channel, that part of the reason WWE is PG right now is because of all the negative attention that they got in that 5-year run that ended up putting WCW out of business. You know, all the parents groups that were, you know, contacting sponsors, they were bleeding sponsors left and right due to, you know, the homoeroticism of certain characters, the stuff with women, you know, stuff with black people, you know, all of this stuff was just, it was decimating. I mean, the TV ratings were high, sure. But what about everything else? There's more than one metric that matters in wrestling. It's not just, well, you know, I've seen, and this is why I don't listen to Vince Russo that often, because you see he'll do a video talking about, you know, the wrestling business is dying. Look at who's not, look at all the people not watching wrestling. I say, well, you're looking at people who are watching at 3 hours of wrestling at one time. You know, some people may watch an hour of Raw and then they'll catch the rest of the clips. There's 100 million ways of watching this show now. You know, you don't have to sit in front of the TV for the entire 3 hours. Some people choose to do that. Some people don't. Some people stream the show. A lot of people stream the show. Some people watch illegal streams. I mean, we can do that. We can play that game all day. And it's the same thing with AEW. So, you know, and plus, I don't think comparing Tony Khan's 1 year of wrestling to, you know, 5 years is a fair comparison. Now, to Vince Russo's point, you know, it was Tony Khan who compared what he does to Vince Russo. So, you know, but I knew AEW was gonna be harmed more by NXT moving than by them being there, you know, because you had the cult was making sure they was there at the time, but once that head-to-head competition disappeared, you know, it wasn't so good. Now, me as a person who not really a fan of either one of these guys, Vince Russo didn't help WCW. He tried. Of course, I've heard him say he didn't have any players, he didn't have any talent. Of course, I've heard that excuse. He's used that excuse a bunch of times. I didn't have any players, bro. I didn't have any stars. It's like, I thought you made stars. You know, like I thought that's like his whole gimmick is I made DX. I made Stone Cold Steve Austin. I did this. I did that. I made Goldust and all this kind of stuff. You know, that's part of his gimmick. I had complete creative control, and I made all these stars. And it's like, but you didn't make any stars anywhere else. Like, you didn't make any stars in WCW. I think maybe Scott Steiner, but Scott Steiner was basically a star as a tag team wrestler before that, and he was actually a singles guy before Vince Russo got there. Did he make any stars in TNA? I mean, he put the belt on AJ Styles, which I'm pretty sure was a Vince Russo idea. But just putting a belt on a guy isn't making him a star. You know, were there any stars made in TNA? You know, I mean, I know that, you know, bringing in Sting helped them, and bringing in Kurt Angle helped them, and Christian and all those guys. Maybe that had more to do with their uptick. And from what I know of TNA, and I don't know TNA that well, that's why I don't talk about it that much, is that he was involved with the Aces and Eights storyline. And that increased, well, was that the Hogan years? Yeah, those are the Hogan years, right? I don't think Vince Russo was there for that. Whatever. I know he was in TNA on more than one occasion, but he doesn't brag about that too much. He had a solid 5-year run when he was the major writer for the WWE. Whether it was with the filter or without the filter, doesn't matter. You know, the filter, for people who don't know, meaning that he had to pitch ideas to Vince and get things thumbs up, thumbs down. You know, Vince Russo claims that there was no filter. He didn't have to get things approved from Vince, which is very hard to believe. I mean, I have a very hard time thinking that Vince McMahon just let whatever stupid idea popped into the head of Vince Russo got put on TV. Maybe he was given more leeway than most people would have, because it was what he was doing was working, and Vince was just kind of like, we're behind the 8 ball, whatever. But I have a hard time buying into the no filter idea. But he's completely triggered. Now, of course, he's been, you know, dissing and attacking AEW already anyway. So it's not like Tony Khan started it. But by mentioning Vince Russo by name, he's created a whole new firestorm. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and donate to the channel if you can. Thank you guys for your time, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session. But you got an affection for no progression. Regression, the best don't